Hello everyone, I'm Vishal Salsekar and today we are going to discuss the News Today articles for 25th of October. Right. So in today's discussion, we are going to cover 5 important articles in detail, which includes the first article regarding the multilateralism. So we will discuss that what are the challenges that this particular term multilateralism or the multilateral global order is facing. We are also going to discuss about in what all manner this is getting manifested, and we will discuss regarding the solution of this particular problem. Next important article we are going to discuss is regarding the blockchain technology in governance. So we have already discussed multiple applications of the blockchain technology, and we will discuss about how in different aspects of the governance it can be utilized in order to make governance more inclusive, more transparent and more secure for the time to arrive in the age of artificial intelligence also. Next is regarding the link between the right to privacy and religion. So both are part of the fundamental right. Right to privacy is part of the Article 21. The right to freedom of religion is part of Article 25 to 28. So we will discuss about what is the linkage between them, and also we will discuss regarding the important case laws, because UPSC keeps on asking regarding first the evolution of the Article 21 right to life and liberty, and also regarding multiple case laws with respect to different rights that are being provided as the part of fundamental rights, part 3 of the Indian Constitution. The next important article we are going to discuss is regarding the legal protection to the domestic workers. So the domestic house help generally being excluded from the benefits that other people are getting, even if they are working in the informal sector. And here we are going to discuss about what is the data regarding them, what are the issues that these particular section, which is the domestic workers, are facing, and what can be the solution in this particular regard. After discussion of this, we are also going to discuss the personality in news, which is Rani Chennamma, and then we are also going to discuss certain other quick updates, right? So let's start the discussion with the very first article regarding the weakening of the multilateralism. So in multiple ways, this particular weakening of the multilateralism is getting manifested. But before discussion about weakening of multilateralism, we have to first understand that what this particular concept of multilateralism is, and in what all manner this particular multilateralism has helped the world post World War II era or post World War II global order. So from the perspective of UPSC General Studies paper 2, where the international relations is part of the syllabus, right? Every year roughly 4 questions UPSC is asking in the mains examination, and also governance, this is an important aspect. So important international institutions, agencies, fora, their structure, mandate, all these things, including the global organizations, different countries, policies. For example, US recent exit from different global organization, all these things talks about that the multilateralism in some way or other is getting weakened, right? So let's start the discussion with the philosophy of the multilateralism. But before this, what is multilateralism? So see, there are certain challenges which does not see any specific border. For example, if there is issue of pollution, there is no national border that can prevent the encroaching of pollution of one country to another country. Similarly, let's say there are issues with respect to the pollution in the seas or the water-based pollutions. In many other manner, issues are getting manifested. For example, terrorism, for example, climate change. These particular issues are not seeing any specific border. And when these are across the border, there is collaboration that is needed between different countries in order to counter these particular issues. So multilateralism got manifested in this particular manner only, and it is about when 3 or more countries are going to collaborate in order to tackle the common problem. That means whether it is terrorism, whether it is climate change, whether it is the reduction of greenhouse gas emission, whether it is adoption of the EVs. So in all these manner, when more than 3 countries, 3 or more than 3 countries are coming together in order to solve the common problem, which is generally not solvable by any single country, that particular process is known as the multilateralism, right? And these groupings which are being formed as a result of that are the multilateral groupings, right? Now, the key aspect of the philosophy, which includes the first, the collective problem solving. So when we talk about the problems which are in general in nature, which are manifested across the countries. For example, as I have discussed about, like the greenhouse gas emission, issues like climate change, issues like terrorism, right? These particular issues are not one country's problem. These are getting manifested. Previously, there was attack in Pahalgam. Now there have been attack in Kabul and the nearby area in Afghanistan. So the perpetrator of the terrorism are putting up their terror activities across different countries. So it ऐसा नहीं है कि only India is getting suffering from the issues like terrorism. There are many other countries, right? So if there is a problem which is being faced by multiple countries, the resolution is also being provided by the collaboration. So that's why there were multiple organizations that were formed, including the organizations like United Nations for the monetary problem, International Monetary Funds for providing loan, the institutions like World Bank for the trade related issues, the organizations like WTO. So these were formed. Next is for the dialogue and diplomacy. So when individual country is going to take any step, the effect will be limited until or unless that is a global or the superpower. But if there are different even smaller countries comes together, the voice gets strengthened by the population, by the size of economy, by different other manner. Now those particular countries can assert or put pressure on even the larger countries or even on the major superpowers. So the multilateralism also helps in dialogue and diplomacy, and that makes any topic more relevant. For example, previously a few years back, the people were not talking that much about the climate change, but now in every statement at the global fora, you are seeing the issues like climate change or the global warming, right? Terrorism. Previously it used to be कि भाई ये इस country के nationalist हैं and that's why they are your terrorists. No. There are certain people who are perpetrating the terror activities across the groups, right? So that's why dialogue and diplomacy, in order to find out the common ground, कि भाई these are the issues which are being faced by the world at large. Next is leave no one behind. Now see, let's assume a country which is the small island country. Now that particular country is facing the highest impact of the climate change because the sea level is rising. Now if that country only wants to get rid of the issues like climate change, that country will not be able to do, because other countries are polluting the environment, and that's why the concentration of GHGs, which are the greenhouse gases, is rising, and that is increasing the temperature. So that's why there is, if any major collaboration, for example, Paris Climate Deal, or maybe any other type of groupings, for example, like UNFCCC. So in that manner, these countries are putting compulsion on the developed countries to reduce the emission, to take the binding target. That's why the multilateralism also talks about leaving no one behind, because it is talking about the collective voice. Shared responsibility, because see, the developed countries have done a lot of pollution because their earlier industrialization, and that's why now they have already exhausted their own quota of the greenhouse gas emission. Now in that particular case, they are having comparatively more responsibility in order to reduce the greenhouse gases. It's not like that all the countries should take equal target. It should be the common but differentiated responsibility, and that's why there should be shared responsibility, where the more responsibility should be taken by those who are the historical emitter. Like this, there should be even the financial sharing, even any other type of sharing that has to be done as per the shared responsibility. Lastly is the rule-based international order. Ultimate objective क्या है for any specific organization, in order to ensure certain rules, in order to govern that region. For example, in Indo-Pacific, if we are talking about the freedom of navigation, if we are talking about the rule-based order, that means we are talking about that no single country should get all the power within this region. And here we are referring to, let's say, China. So there are organizations which are coming together to counter China or the assertive nature of China in that region. So the multilateral organization also talks about the rule-based international order, right? So this is the philosophy behind the multilateralism. Now, how the multilateralism is getting eroded, how that particular thing is getting manifested. So the first example is reduced effectiveness of the global organization. So see, there are multiple organizations. Let's say there was United Nations, जो कि फॉर्म किया गया था इन 1945 after the World War II in order to ensure that the world remain a peaceful place. There should not be any major war or escalation between two countries. Now, in that particular manner, in order to keep that relevant, there should be reforms. For example, ऐसा तो नहीं है कि 1945 में what was the power structure? The same power structure is still there. The Soviet Union got disintegrated. America का power has relatively declined. The power of the other countries, including the France, including UK, has declined. There has been emergence of the countries. There have been emergence of China. There have been emergence of India. There have been emergence of the global South countries. Has this been done or reflected in the global organization? No. That's why there will be reduced effectiveness. So one such issue is when there is issue with respect to any organization, organization loses its legitimacy, and that's why there will be reduction of its effectiveness. Now, in the case of World Trade Organization, what is happening? Since 2019, there is appellate body of the WTO which heard the appeal, which hears the appeal in general of the issues which are there in WTO. Now there have been no appointments because US is constantly blocking the appointments to the WTO ka appellate tribunal. Now in that case, obviously this organization which was formed as the multilateral organization to ensure the free and fair trade, now that is getting hampered. So that's why the organization is going to get loosening of its effectiveness. Similarly, withdrawal from the global framework. Now see, World War II के बाद major organizations were formed which were focusing upon the multilateralism. That's why the US have put up heavy responsibilities on itself, and yes, they have also got benefited because let's say if they are contributing more in IMF, that's why they are also having more share in IMF. Now, since the power structure has changed, there should be redistribution. That has not been done. Now, what US is doing? US is now going for the America First policies. That means now they are taking themselves out of the global responsibilities. Let's say the Paris Climate Deal, they came out. For example, UNESCO, they came out. Human Rights Council, they came out. WHO, they came out. So many such major organizations from which they have exited. Even UN peacekeeping and many other places pay whatever historical responsibilities they had played, and because of which they also got benefited. Now they are not sharing those responsibility. That's why there have been erosion of multilateralism, because other countries also think ki if they are not doing, why should we? Right? So that's why the issue. Next is resolving conflict. Now already there are multiple conflicts going on. A few days back, there was a ceasefire that was signed between Israel and Hamas, right? Now, Russia-Ukraine crisis is going on since 2022. Many other global crises are going on, for example, issues in Sudan and many other places in Africa. Now, is UN able to resolve all the conflict? The answer is clearly no. The Sahel region is already in turmoil. So when the United Nations, जिसका एक prominent objective था in order to ensure the human rights and also to ensure the development of the world, that particular thing is not being done. Resolution of the conflict, that is not being done properly. So in that case, resolving of the conflict is not being done, and hence the credibility is again in question. Next, rise of minilaterals and the regional partnership. When we talk about multilateral, means see, multilateralism or the multilateral organization are focusing upon comparatively larger objective. But let's say when we talk about a smaller organization, for example, Quad, which is focusing upon the Indo-Pacific region. So if there is Quad for the Indo-Pacific region, including limited number of countries, they are known as the minilateral because they are formed for the smaller objective or the limited objective. Right. So there have been significant rise in the cooperation between countries. For example, like Quad is there. There is AUKUS, which is Australia, UK and US, which is a grouping that was formed in order to collaborate and boosting up the Australian defense or the naval defense. Right. There is BRICS, which is the Organization of Global South. There is Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which is the partnership between the ASEAN country and certain other countries, which are the important partner of ASEAN, right? So there are smaller groups, CPTPP is there. So many smaller organizations were formed, which are talking about the limited partnership or limited development among themselves. That means now the multilateral organization has been replaced by the smaller organization. Previously, there used to be more predominant effect of World Bank. Now, there is NDB under BRICS. There is AIIB, Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank. So, multiple other alternative organizations were formed. further imposing of the unilateral economic sanction. Right now what US is doing in the form of its tariff related war, right? What they are doing, they are imposing ban on certain countries with respect to trade. They are increasing tariff. Why? Because if you are buying or purchasing the Russian oil, that means we are going to impose sanctions on you. You might have heard of one particular thing, which is CAATSA, which is countering American adversaries through the sanctions act. Matlab, if you are going to not follow the American policies, we are putting sanctions on you. That means despite having multilateralism, one country is doing something like dadagiri, right? So that is a issue. Apart from that, protectionist policies means you are not allowing other country to supply the material to your country, or curtailing the import from that, or not providing export to that particular country. अच्छा, इसी में एक और prominent example you can see regarding the UN, because United Nations mein there was one such organization which used to be very, very predominant. Right now it is also loosening its relevance, which is the UNSC. Now UNSC was formed along with the United Nations in 1945, one of the principal organ, but only 5 permanent member. Those 5 permanent member, as I was already initially talking about, that they were previously more predominant. Now they have been also to some extent replaced by certain alternative powers. So in that case, if you are not doing the reforms in a timely manner, there will be the reduction of the relevance of that particular organization. So this is about the erosion of multilateralism. Now what is the way ahead? Obviously, see, in order to prevent any irrelevance, just say if I ask you that in order to remain relevant in the UPSC examination, you have to keep your content updated, you have to keep the current affairs revised, you have to include the value addition. This is what you are doing. So when we are talking about any organization, that organization also has to keep itself relevant, changing the course, changing the thought process, changing the even members, giving prominence to certain other members which also got comparatively more power. So when we talk about the institutional overhaul, whether we talk about UNSC, where there is reform which is much pending, so there are many such groups. For example, there is G4, which includes the countries like India, Brazil, Germany and Japan, which talks about that give us representation in the UNSC. Because right now whatever countries are there, usse zyada power hamare paas hai, whether it is in economic terms, population wise, technology wise, right? But still we are not getting representation. There are other groups also. For example, there is Coffee Club or the Uniting for Consensus, which is opposing the bid of G4. There is Isolvini Consensus from Africa. So there are many such organizations are formed talking about the reforms in UNSC. That means it is not more representative at all. Similarly, when we talk about IMF, now IMF में the Western countries used to get more quota. Now historically ऐसा ही होता आ रहा है, right? Now when Western countries have comparatively more quota, they will be having more decision making power, they will be allotted with more fund. But now are all the Western countries have comparatively better economic position? In many such cases, India is very well positioned with almost all the Western countries, right? In economic terms, in population wise, in the terms of demographic dividend. So now don't India deserve comparatively better quota in IMF? So when these organizations are not getting reformed, there will be issues. So the institutional overhaul is one such prominent thing in order to keep the organization relevant. Addressing the new and the emerging global challenges. So see, there are many such issues. We are talking about climate change, we are talking about the greenhouse gases emission, we are talking about the renewable energy. Apart from that, we are talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning. We are also talking about the many other new ways in which that can impact the world. So when the new challenges are emerging, you have to also keep yourself relevant, incorporating those things in your ambit. That's why there should be new global standard that should be established. Lastly, addressing the global south priorities. So the countries which are the member of global south, which are the relevant and more important countries, for example, the countries like India have initiated with the Voice of Global South Summit. That means collective voice in order to put pressure on the developed countries from the side of developing countries. They are talking about the reforms at UNSC, reforms at IMF, right? So addressing the global south priorities, because see, the developed countries have different set of problem, but the developing countries ka problem are survival problem and the basic problem. That's why there is a need to address these particular problem. Climate finance. We are expecting the global south ka countries to curtail the emission reduction. but they do not possess the adequate amount of technology which is being possessed by the developed countries. So it is the responsibility of the developed countries who are the historical emitter in order to provide that technology to the developing countries. Similarly, the protectionist policies. So the countries, the countries like US, what they are doing, despite having control over the technology, they try to weaponize that technology. They try to use that technology in order to arm twist other countries in order to prevent that particular country's voice at the global level. So all these things have to be addressed in order to keep the multilateralism relevant. So in this particular article, it is said कि ऐसा नहीं है कि it has completely ended, but yes, there are erosion, there are tendencies of erosion. So we have to address this particular problem in order to keep the multilateralism relevant, right? Now see, UPSC may not ask direct question, but see, in 2025 only, out of 4 questions in IR, there were 2 questions directly or indirectly asking about the multilateralism. With the waning of globalization, post-Cold War world is becoming the site of the sovereign nationalism elucidate. Don't you think so? It is to some extent asking about the decline of multilateralism, decline of globalization, and rise of the protectionist policies. So that's why you have to have a clear idea about this. Similarly, the reform process in the UNSC remains unresolved because of the delicate imbalance of the East and West and entanglement of the US versus Russo-Chinese alliance. So these are talking about how the multilateralism is on the side of decline or how deglobalization is going on, and then you have to give a way ahead also. So try to answer these particular questions. These questions gives you an idea that in what manner UPSC expects you to think about any specific topic. Next important article, which has already been discussed multiple times, but let's discuss it again. The strengthening of governance through the blockchain technology. Now, blockchain technology was conventionally considered कि भाई in the terms of the cryptocurrencies ही इसका utility है. But over a period of time, whether it is logistics, whether it is health, whether it is education, whether it is agriculture, whether it is in any manner, the blockchain technology is having relevance. Now, when we talk about this particular thing from the perspective of GS paper 3, from the science and technology perspective, this is an important article, and even from the GS paper 2, because when we talk about governance, when governance comes into play, this is directly becoming the topic from the perspective of GS paper 2. So the governance, transparency, e-governance, all these things are part of this. And when we talk about governance, we have to make governance more transparent, more accountable, and more secure in the age of artificial intelligence. That's why the blockchain technology is very, very important and has to be understood clearly. Now, when we talk about blockchain, let's first discuss about the basic of the blockchain. So, assume it as a digital ledger. अब देखो, digital ledger को if I tell you in very simple terms, assume it like a Excel or the spreadsheet which all the people have access and they can update. Now see, let's assume that this is a spreadsheet. I'm giving you a very layman's example. Suppose करो, if any one of you have all of you have access, any one of you have marked, let's say, cross over here. Now all the people who have access to this will verify whether this particular cross is justified here or not. That means one of you have done the changes in that and other people will be verifying this particular change and they will be authenticating, and once authenticated in a decentralized manner, it will be approved. Now tomorrow, suppose karo, if somebody else is going to verify that what was the status of this particular place before X, so you can check that what was the series of trail ki is places pe kya kya change hua hai over a period of time and who have changed. So this is the manner in which the digital ledger works. That means everyone is having access. All of them can check the series of changes, series of transactions in this, and they can ensure the transparency, they can ensure the accountability, they can ensure the security in this particular digital ledger. Once this is approved by all, this becomes the inherent part of this entire digital ledger. But for that, it has to be approved initially, right? So in the similar manner, this particular blockchain is the distributed, because all of the people जिनके उनके पास access रहेगा, they will be having access. It is transparent because whatever changes are being done, all can see that, all have to approve that. It is a consensus based system. It is secure because see, just assume a scenario. देखो, why there are many frauds? Suppose if I purchase a property, right? Maybe a chance that is a disputed property, but the person who is selling me this property does not tell me that the status of this property is disputed. Now, who will be telling me? This may be the municipal authority which will tell me कि भाई इसका status तो clear ही नहीं है, how you have purchased this, this is already in the court. Now, if this would have been on the digital ledger, all the transactions previously have been done could have been seen. सपोज करो ये वो प्रॉपर्टी के ट्रांजेक्शन है, आई कुड हैव सीन कि ये प्रॉपर्टी किन लोगों ने प्रीवियसली ओन किया है, व्हाट इज द प्रेजेंट स्टेटस, व्हाट इज द हिस्ट्री. सो इन दैट मैनर आई विल बी एबल टू चेक द इंटायर हिस्ट्री. सो आई विल ऑल्सो बी एबल टू इंश्योर द सिक्योरिटी इन दैट कि इफ आई एम इन्वेस्टिंग मनी, that money will not go wasted or that particular money will not get stuck in that particular asset. And also immutable. ऐसा नहीं है कि कोई भी अपने मन से चेंज कर सकता है. That has to be even get the consent from the others. So it is having all the property that is going to help managing this particular data in a secure, transparent and the accountable manner. Now this is resistant to tampering because when all of you have the access to this, this is resistant to tampering. It has to be approved by all. Accessible across the networks of the computer. जहां जहां पर access है, there it will be accessed. Now this is the diagram. I know it is a slightly blur, but let's start with this particular diagram. First, in the first step in the blockchain, there will be a user who initiates the data. For example, if I want to purchase this particular property, I pay some money and then the property is on my name. Now, the previous transaction I can check ki previously who have purchased this, what was the value, what was the appreciation, what is the current status as far as the legal status is concerned. So, I have initiated a data or the transaction request. Now, this transaction request goes to the entire network. Are there any dispute with property? Is there anybody else in the entire network who is also claiming this property? So this particular thing will go to all the nodes जहां पर लोग connected हैं and they will be checking the status of this property. If nobody is having any conflict with this, then this will be approved. So network nodes validate the transaction through the consensus mechanism. So there will be consensus कि भाई this property can be owned by me now. So I'll complete the transaction. I'll buy this property. Now once it will be approved by the entire network, the verified transaction is grouped into the new cryptographic block. अब ये एक नया cryptographic block add हो चुका है and in this there is the new status that has been updated. Now the previous status are already there. Now this is the new status. So next time nobody else can sell this particular property without even taking my consent, और ऐसा नहीं होगा कि like that property will again go to somebody else without even taking my consideration or taking the property from me, right? Now this block is added permanently to the existing. Now this is a separate block which has been added to this blockchain. That means the user can update based upon the request and then validated by the entire network. Once the transaction is complete, it becomes immutable and transparent. It will be visible to all. Now if anybody want to check the status of this particular property, they can check that this is registered on my name. So this is about how the blockchain technology works. Now this is not only for the property, for the documents also, for the case laws also, for the logistics also, for anything, whether it is agriculture, whether it is any other thing, it can be checked, right? Now, talking about the key role of the blockchain technology in governance, now I don't think so you will get any confusion in this. First is the property chain. I think that this is now understood to you. So blockchain powered property management system, this works on this manner, which I have already explained to you. So if there is a property that I am interested in, I want to purchase that property, all the people who are part of this particular network will see or will be able to see my request of purchasing that property. I'll also be able to check about the status of that particular property. If there is no contestation, I can purchase this particular property, right? And this property will be free from any legal dispute. So right now, jitne ye legal dispute hote hain regarding the properties, that can be prevented if the property chain is properly implemented. Right now, it is at the functional stage. It is getting implemented at certain scale, but yes, if implemented nationwide, this will reduce the case laws or the litigation with respect to the issues of property. Certificate and document chain. So you already know regarding the DigiLocker, but there you are keeping the documents by your own. Now assume a scenario, let's say CBSE or maybe any other board from which you are getting the degree. Now let's say right now you are being assigned with that particular degree, but tomorrow that university revokes your degree. Now you have a physical copy, you submit it to some organization, that organization thinks that yes, you are possessing a physical copy, that means you have this particular degree. But tomorrow, suppose karo, if the university revokes your degree, in that particular case what is going to happen? You have physical degree, now that is not valid, but you are showing your degree to the people ki bhai dekho, I am having this particular degree. Now in that case, if there is certificate and document chain which is managed by the National Informatics Center, in that manner the organization where you are applying that can verify it with the सर्टिफिकेट चेन एंड दे कैन वैलिडेट द प्रेजेंट स्टेटस. ऐसा तो नहीं कि पहले आपको डिग्री देने के बाद लेटर ऑन इट वाज रिवोक्ड. सो दिस इज द मैनर इन विच द सर्टिफिकेट्स एंड डॉक्यूमेंट चेन कैन बी गॉट. Logistics chain, similarly, in order to see the transactions in the supply chain from the raw material procurement to the entire value addition to the final product publishing, marketing and all these things can be checked over here, right? Apart from that, the traceability from all what all stages it is going through, the accountability at what stage it is stuck. So logistics mein what all you can think, those particular aspects can be developed well with the blockchain technology. So similarly, there is a system, online supply chain management system for medicine, which is Aushad of Karnataka, Aushad portal of Karnataka, talking about the supply chain management of medicine, that can check ki because of what things, if there are any supplies that is getting interrupted. So it checks all the logistics, it can trace the issues with this particular regard. Similarly, judiciary chain. Now, if through blockchain it is connected, first the orders which are already released by court, that can be very well aware to all the people, they can check the status, they can check the online or trace the online status of that particular order. So electronic delivery of notices, summon, bail order, that can be easily accessed by anyone who is attached to that particular network of blockchain. So the delays with respect to judiciary can be reduced. Lastly, interoperable criminal justice system. So there are over 39,000 ICJS documents have been verified on the blockchain platform, right? So sometimes what happens that there have been certain verdict that have been given, but implementation delay hota hai, right? So this particular issues can be verified in the blockchain wala manner, and that can ensure comparatively better availability of information to all the stakeholders, and through this particular blockchain technology can be helpful in the governance. Now, what are the key initiatives that have been taken regarding the blockchain technology? So first is the National Blockchain Framework of 2024. So this is the holistic framework that talks about the entire development of the blockchain in India, right? So it talks about the Vishwasya blockchain stack. So it is basically a kind of module which can be taken in order to develop your own solution with respect to blockchain. So there are certain pre-prepared modules that are there. Let's say this is for education, this is for health. Now any specific company, if they want to work upon this, they need not to start from scratch. They can utilize blockchain as a service directly and they can build up upon that. So like this, जैसे हर UPI system को अपना पूरा network खुद से नहीं बनाना होता है. There is NPCI network that is already available and that can be utilized by any UPI related company. So Vishwasya blockchain stack, that is a technical foundation for building and deploying the blockchain based applications, and that will be also lesser time consuming. Next is the NBF Lite, which is the blockchain sandbox. For example, if you have to roll out any specific project, initially you want to start with any pilot project. Now for the blockchain also you will do the same thing. Now if you would have rolled out the entire project, what if that thing not worked? What if there are certain issues at the later stage? So in order to do that, there is NBF Lite, which is the blockchain sandbox, in order to get it assessed at the limited scale in order to identify its impact. Next is Pramanik, which is the innovative blockchain solution for app verification. Pramanik means basically a verification related thing, right? So it is the innovative blockchain solution for app verification. Whatever apps you are downloading on your phone or your device, whether that is coming from the authenticated user. ऐसा तो नहीं है कि that is some malware, right? So if that particular information you want to seek, that is available on the blockchain, and that will help you to prevent any prevent with any specific malicious software that you can download eventually. Lastly is the National Blockchain Portal. So this supports innovation, standardization and the cross-sector adoption. So this is a portal which is helping with respect to the adoption of the blockchain technology. Next is the national strategy on the blockchain. So this is basically the strategy that how country is going to grow with the blockchain technology. This is the roadmap for the development of blockchain technology. Who developed it? It is developed by the Ministry of Electronics and the Information Technology. Lastly is the Center of Excellence. Now Center of Excellence generally is being formed in order to share the best practices, in order to give the idea, in order to develop the capabilities. So blockchain technology ki jo Center of Excellence hai, that have been formed by the National Informatics Center for consultancy, training, support for developing the projects or at the pilot basis, right? So these are the initiatives that have already been taken with respect to the blockchain technology. Now, whether it is asked from GS paper 2 from governance perspective or from the perspective of GS paper 3, which is specifically asking about the technology, now you have sufficient content available in order to write the answers along with the application also. Now this is the way UPSC asked the question. It was asked previously in 2020 regarding the prelims. It is about the blockchain technology. Try to write the answer of this question in the comment section. Even I am expecting ki bhai jab means answer questions we are discussing, try to write something about that. That will help you in order to frame the statement, because one such inertia with respect to the means examination that has to be broken, right? The next article is regarding the recent Supreme Court's observation on the freedom of religion and the right to privacy, and Supreme Court has said that these two are interlinked, right? Now, we know that General Studies paper 2, Polity, Governance, Constitution mein you can expect the question with respect to the fundamental rights, and there these particular interpretation can be asked, the Supreme Court judgment can be asked, right? And the interpretation for further the evolution of Article 21 can be asked. So Polity, Governance, Constitution, it can be asked, right? Now, what is the relation between the freedom of religion and the right to privacy? Now, freedom of religion and right to privacy both are part of the part 3 of the Indian Constitution, which talks about the fundamental right, which prevents state encroaching into the people or the people's rights. Matlab state can't take your rights which are available to you by the virtue of the Constitution of India. Now see, there was a recent case which was the Rajendra Bihari Lal versus the state of Uttar Pradesh, where Supreme Court has held that right to privacy is intrinsic to the right to freedom of religion. That means they have said ki bhai right to privacy which has been awarded to you under the part of Article 21, which is talking about the right to life and liberty, and right to freedom of religion, which is talking about your freedom of religion provided under Article 25 to 28. So that is, privacy is intrinsic to that. That means whatever religion you are following, the state can't question that why you follow this particular religion, based upon following, based upon conscience. Not necessarily that every practice will be sanctioned by the state. So there have to be a clear differentiation you have to understand. Now, what is the link between privacy and the religion that you have to understand? Now see, as I have already told, UPSC generally asks the question regarding the case laws. So Rajendra Bihari Lal versus state of Uttar Pradesh. In this particular case, Supreme Court has talked about the interrelation between these two rights, right to privacy and right to freedom of religion. Now, what is the link between them? So the link has been mentioned by Supreme Court that Article 25 जो है वो include करता है elements of privacy in the right to freedom of conscience. That means what particular religion you are following, ठीक है, क्या मान रहे हो आप, क्या profess करना है, what you are practicing and what you are propagating. Now in the propagation, see, sometimes there have been question ki whether religious conversion also part of it. So for that there have been different states which have already formulated laws regarding that. Now it is saying that ability to choose a faith, freedom to express or not to express is up to that individual. You can't question that why you are following this religion, why you are not following this religion. So this choosing of faith, freedom to express or not express is up to that particular individual. That is their personal discretion, and that's why the privacy, that is their private affair. No state can force them or no individual can force them in order to follow any specific religion or even not to express कि मतलब आप नहीं follow करो ये चीज या follow करो, that can't be done. Now publishing and declaration of the one's personal faith, that means if you are having a faith with religion X, now nobody can compel you not to follow that or not to declare your faith. Matlab, that is your personal affair. It is not that individual is forcing that yes, he is like this. ऐसा नहीं है. Without his will coercing into his private sphere, that cannot be done. So the breaches the fundamental rights to privacy under Article 25 and 21. In this particular case, right to privacy comes under the ambit of Article 25 also. Now, as I have already told you that there are many states, in order to prevent the freedom of propagating religion, many a time it was understood that even the conversion or the forceful conversion is also like, if I am following one religion, I want to convert you also to follow that particular religion. Now that forceful conversion has been banned and many states have formulated their own law regarding that. So anti-conversion legislation are already there in many such states. So now the Supreme Court has held, and already Supreme Court ke paas multiple cases hai in order to see that whether they are infringing upon the privacy of an individual. So Supreme Court is checking regarding the privacy and infringing of the privacy related aspect. So these are the things through which there is a link between the privacy and the religion. Now, what are the other observations that Supreme Court has made? First, Supreme Court again reiterated that secularism, which was already been emphasized in the S.R. Bommai case in late 1990s, it was mentioned by the Supreme Court that see, preamble में जो चीजें लिखी गई हैं, they are part of or the intrinsic part of the basic structure of Indian Constitution. That means they can't be altered. आप ऐसा नहीं कि आप ये हटा दो completely from the Constitution. So again it has mentioned that the secularism is the part of the basic structure of the Indian Constitution. That means if there is any legislation or any constitutional amendment, if that is infringing upon this particular value, that will be held as null and void and ultra vires, right? Now, there were certain previous judgments also that we all know, that there is K.S. Puttaswamy case of 2017 where it was mentioned that the right to privacy, though despite not mentioned directly within the Constitution, कहीं कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में मेंशन नहीं है, बट अंडर द राइट टू लाइफ एंड लिबर्टी आर्टिकल 21 से ये ड्राइव होता है, बिकॉज आर्टिकल 21 ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम इनकॉर्पोरेटेड मल्टीपल थिंग्स इंक्लूडिंग एजुकेशन, इंक्लूडिंग हेल्थ, इंक्लूडिंग शेल्टर, मैनी अदर थिंग्स. सो सिमिलरली privacy is also part of that. Now apart from that, Shafin Jahan versus Ashokan KM case, in this particular case it is also famously known as Hadia case, right? So in that particular case it was held that it is the individual autonomy. ठीक है, so they upheld that the individual autonomy in the faith and the marriage choices. You can't force individual to marry based upon your choice. It is their own choice. If they are adult individual, they can choose their partner. They do have freedom to choose their own partner. This was the famous Hadia case, right? Now, this is regarding the observations. Now, you already got 3 constitutional judgments, right? Oh, Supreme Court judgments, including the Rajendra Bihari Lal versus State of Uttar Pradesh. You also got regarding the K.S. Puttaswamy case. You also got the Shafin Jahan versus Ashokan KM case. So these particular cases you can write at your end, and whenever there is a question regarding the privacy versus freedom of religion, there you can quote these particular cases also. Now, similarly, UPSC time and again have asked the question, right to privacy is intrinsic to right to life and personal liberty and inherently protected under the Article 21 of the Constitution. Explain. In this reference, discuss the law relating to DNA testing of child in womb to establish its paternity, right? Discuss India as a secular state, compare with the principle of the US Constitution. So comparison between Constitution, and examine the scope of fundamental rights in the light of the latest judgment. So like this, UPSC asks latest judgment, whether it is on gender justice, whether it is on privacy, whether it is on anything, maybe education, right? So like this they can ask. They can even ask regarding the evolution of the Article 21 also. Last article from the detailed discussion perspective is inadequate laws to protect the domestic workers in India. Now, when we talk about the inadequate protections available to the domestic workers of India, now try to assume the scenario that you already might be having the maid at your home, right? And in that particular case, what all rights are available to that particular individual? Because they are serving you, they may be doing the domestic chores, they may be helping you with that, but what kind of available rights with them as far as they are getting employed at your home? So now, this is the scenario, and that's why we are discussing this particular article, that there is no such national level legislation with respect to the domestic help. ठीक है, and that's what is preventing any uniform strategy with respect to their protection. So GS paper to polity, governance, social justice में welfare scheme from the for the vulnerable section of population by center, state and the performance of these schemes, and even GS paper 3 economy, employment and inclusive growth. This is an important topic. Now talking about this, what is the status of the domestic workers in India? So when we talk about the domestic workers का status, in that case India has approximately 2.81 crore domestic and the household registered. मतलब जो domestic help है that is registered. There are many more which are not registered, because if you even ask at your own domestic help, many of them are not registered with the e-Shram portal. So 2.81 crore are those who are already registered. Most of them are from vulnerable sections, women, even children are there, the girls from the deprived section, SC/ST communities are there, making them vulnerable to exploitation, because poor availability of the any kind of grievance redressal, their poor economic background, poor social background, deprived communities, right? All these are preventing to get the resolution of the issues. Next is many workers are migrant. Many a time they are not the local people. They might be residing at such places where they are even in the illegal encroachments, but why? Because they are not belonging to that region. They came from certain region for this particular job seeking wala thing, and they are living there. So these require protection across the state and even in the neighboring countries, because sometime what happens, maybe from Nepal, maybe from Bhutan, maybe from Bangladesh, like this, there have been migrations that is being done with respect to this domestic help wala thing. Now the issues include abuse, harassment, child labor, exploitative employments agencies, then lack of minimum wages, inconsistent work hours, absence of the social security. So all these issues are there, and why these issues are there? Because there is lack of protection. See, many a time the issues are there with respect to the domestic help is they are not attached to only one employer. In many cases, yes, it might be the scenario that they are only residing at one household and they are serving that, but many such time pe, if you are cook, maybe you are like domestic house help, jo cleaning and all ke liye you might be, you might have employed that particular individual. So in that case, that is attached to your house for a few hours, but then she's or he might be working across many other places also. So that particular thing is also preventing in order to get some social security rights, right? Now, Union government is yet to frame a comprehensive domestic workers rights law as directed by the Supreme Court. So Supreme Court in 2025 have mandated कि भाई आपको एक legislation बनाना है which will be ensuring the social security वाला thing, right? So that has not been done till now. Now, what are the other legal frameworks that are available? So it is talking about certain other legal framework. For example, right to fair wages means when you are employing any individual, there should be fair wages. For example, there are certain states which are prescribing the minimum wages under the Minimum Wages Act. But since there is no such national level legislation, so it is depending upon the state to state. And in that also, many such state may, since it is different, because different states have different law, that's why there is no uniform policy. And when there is no uniform policy, this is subjected to the discretion within that particular state. So that's why the right to fair wages, though sanctioned by the Minimum Wages Act, but not been implemented across the board. Next is right to safe working condition. Now when even informal or formal, there should be safe working conditions. Now there may be domestic abuse, there may be sexual harassment, there may be child labor. All these things should be prevented. Now the employer can pay responsibility to provide the abuse-free environment. Even there is prevention of sexual harassment at Workplace Act of 2013 based upon Vishakha guidelines. Now see, many such households are there. In what all household you can go and inquire that what is the conditions that this particular domestic help is going through. So in that particular cases, this is right to safe working condition is being provided, but that cannot be checked across the board. Next is protection from abuse and exploitation. So Bharatiya Nari Suraksha जो Act है 2023 का, that provides the protection against all form of abuse, which also enable the legal remedies, but again their implementation is to some extent lagging. And many times, even those who are the domestic house help, they think that if they are going to complain, they will lose up upon their employment. And that's what is the major issue, because of the lack of legal protection available to them. Next is some state level initiatives are there. For example, there are some state like Tamil Nadu which have provided the welfare benefit like minimum wages, right, under the Manual Workers Act of 1982. So that's what is the issue. Certain states which are proactive, they have created their own framework, but it is not like national level framework which is right now lacking, which is preventing the enforcement. Similarly, Karnataka has recently brought a bill which is talking about the workers registration, means even if you are a domestic house help, you should be registered on the portal so that we can check that whether you are getting the basic minimum wages or not. Then the contracts, minimum wages, etc. And to establish a welfare fund also in order to get the contribution from employer, employee and others, and state ke side se also in order to help them. So these are the things with respect to the legal frameworks available with the domestic help. Now, what are the issues in the implementation? So as we have talked about, first issue is the patchy state regulation. State A is having certain regulation, B is having certain other regulation, so that's why there is no uniform standards that are available. When no uniform standards are there, there is weak enforcement and state-wise variation. So that's what is preventing the enforcement of that particular laws. Next is the exclusion under the labor codes. So labor codes mein those who are working in the industrial establishment, they are part of that. Many other informal sectors are part of that. But the domestic household help is excluded from that. And that's what is preventing availability of whether minimum wages and all to these particular domestic household. Then limited organizing, right? So there is dispersed workplaces, matlab one person is serving multiple household, 1 hour here, 1 hour there, like this 4-5 household. So it's not like ki ek workplace fixed hai. Migratory status, many a time they do not even possess the proper needed document. They are illegal immigrant also many a time. Then the poor socioeconomic condition, poor educational background, they do not know what kind of recourse they are having or they are available with, through which they can get prevented from the exploitation. Next is regarding data and definition issue. So there is lack of credible data regarding the migration, regarding the employment status, and which is preventing a comprehensive policy in that regard. And also the contested definition with respect to the domestic household or domestic house help, right? Now what should be the way forward? The minimum wages across the state. So if there is a national level policy, see this is the way ahead. There should be a national level model policy that should be there, and that particular policy ke basis pe there should be the minimum wages based upon the inflation in that particular state, maybe depending upon certain other factors. There should be compulsory registration. So compulsory registration, those who are employing them, those who want to get employed, those who want to get social security benefit, they should compulsorily register themselves so that at least state will be having a database regarding the employment status, regarding all the other things. Okay? So employers, agencies, workers. Lastly is the legislative action. So comprehensive centralized legislation or central legislation enforcing rights, wages, social security, welfare of the domestic workers. So this is a mandatory thing that should be there in order to ensure the uniform regulatory standards regarding the workers' benefit, right? So this is regarding the domestic workers related article, right? Okay. So having discussed with this, now let's discuss regarding the personality in news, which is today regarding the Rani Chennamma, a prominent personality which was considered as one of the pioneer personality as far as the women revolutionaries are concerned, right? Generally, we tend to ignore certain prominent personalities from the Indian history. We keep on focusing upon the limited number of personality. That's why it is very, very important that we should cherish our history and that we should also know about those who are the unsung heroes of the freedom struggle, right? So in that, Rani Chennamma from the Karnataka region also played a very important contribution. Now what is the context behind this? So there was recently birth anniversary of Rani Chennamma that was celebrated on 23rd of October. And if there is any prominent personality that was in news because of anything, that can be asked by UPSC. So now regarding Rani Chennamma, there are certain personal thing and there are certain other revolt related thing which UPSC can ask, and that's why we can also discuss. She was married to the Raja Mallas Raja of Kittur. Okay. Once her husband died, after that her son was put on the throne, but once her son was also died, now there was no such heir, so she adopted a child. So Shiv Lingappa she adopted, and she was the regent queen. Matlab she was ruling on behalf of Shivalingappa. He was the adopted child. Now you might have already heard of a policy which was the doctrine of lapse. Matlab if you do not have any of legitimate successor in that particular case, what Britishers might do, Britishers can annex your kingdom. Though this particular policy was mastered by Dalhousie, but till this point of time, by 1824, obviously Dalhousie was not there in the Indian spectrum, but this particular kingdom was annexed and there was a fierce revolt between, or the war between the British East India Company and the Rani Chennamma, or the forces of Kittur. That led to one of the prominent and the earliest rebellion against the British East India Company. Okay? So this is one of the earliest instance of the doctrine of lapse, obviously not under the tenure of Dalhousie. So Kittur revolt of 1824, so it was the first Indian armed rebellion against the British East India Company. Now see, ऐसा कोई absolute नहीं है, because at this point of time also there was the Paika rebellion also. So many a time contested things are there, but yes, this was one of the prominent revolt against the EIC. Initially British lost, but later on Rani Chennamma was captured and she was imprisoned till her death in 1829. Now, there may be certain values that we can learn. So, for example, leadership, for example, courage, for example, empathy, all these values and virtues we can learn from Rani Chennamma, and that can also be quoted in the ethics related answers. Okay? So, this was the personality news. Now, let's discuss about certain other quick updates briefly. First is regarding the execution petition. So, see, recently, Supreme Court had highlighted that there is a high pendency in the lower courts due to the massive backlog, which is 8.82 lakh of the executive petition. Now, simply understand that first step is basically giving the order. For example, let's say there is a dispute between you and me. I won this particular case and now you have to pay me, let's say 20 crore rupees. So in that particular case, now this is the verdict of the court. Now ऐसा तो नहीं है verdict हो गया तो कल ही आप मुझे पैसे दे दोगे, right? So in that case, what will be there? There will be a execution petition that whatever verdict was provided, to enforce that, there will be execution petition that will be provided by the judiciary. So this will enforce the individual to give me that settlement amount. So this is a legal tool to implement the decree. Whatever decree has been provided or order has been provided by court, this execution petition will be the enforcing tool. So in 2021, Supreme Court has already laid down the guideline that there should be 6 months deadline ki is time period ke andar there should be availability of the execution petition. So this can be a one-liner question by UPSC that what this particular execution petition is. So just have a brief idea about this. Next is regarding the responsible use of AI during the election. So now see, as AI is impacting the entire lifespan, right? And even you might have seen a lot of web series are also being created fully by the AI. They are marketing it as like the AI powered web series. So like this AI is now in different domain. So similarly, when we are talking about election, many a time there are certain videos that might be circulated, there may be certain deepfakes that might be circulated. So in that cases, it is now mentioned by the Election Commission of India to all the political party regarding the responsible use of the AI generated content. How they are saying and why they are saying, first to play level in the level playing field with all the parties. ऐसा ना हो कि one party is having more political might, more resources, other party is lacking with that. That's why there is a lack of level playing field. That's why it is said that there should be a clear level playing field between all the parties. So now, what are the guidelines? That content, if that is AI generated, must clearly mention with the label like the AI generated content or the synthetic content. That means this is not creative and created by the individual. It is the AI creation. That's what should be mentioned. Unlawful misleading content that distorts the person's identity, appearance, voice is strictly prohibited. So if you are mimicking any specific individual, if you are hampering the prestige of that particular individual, that is not allowed. So deepfakes को ban किया गया है and deepfakes should not be allowed. And your party, whatever they are doing, they should keep a record of that. So they should be maintaining the details of AI generated material. So tomorrow if there will be any kind of litigation against you in that particular manner, so this particular data will be beneficial for the inquiry and other purposes, right? So use of artificial intelligence in multiple domain, one such thing is election. That's what also you can briefly have an idea about. Next is regarding the kafala system. So the contested is that generally the Middle Eastern countries have this particular system, which is the kafala system. Now that is being abolished by many such Middle Eastern countries and the Western Asian countries. What is kafala system? Kafala is basically a system of attachment. Matlab, this is a sponsorship system where the migrant labor who is going is attached to the person who is providing that person as employment, and that sponsor is known as kafil, right? So suppose if you as a migrant labor is going to, let's say, Saudi Arabia, you will be attached to a sponsor who is taking care of all your expenses, but then in return you have to work for that. Your all legal document, your residency related document is with that individual. You can't switch your job, you can't roam freely. You will be basically in direct or indirect control of that particular individual who is your sponsor. So that means it is a way of modern day slavery. They are paying you money, but they are controlling everything. Whether you can go or return back to your own country, you cannot go, your passport is with them, so you can't freely change even the job, right? And that led to the exploitation of those people. So now Saudi Arabia have recently abolished this kafala system. So there are more than 13 million foreign migrants worker in Saudi Arabia. More than 2.6 million are Indians. That means Indian people going and working over there. So this kafala is a worker sponsorship program, jahan par there will be a sponsor who is the kafil, who will be having access to many such migrant laborers, and they will be keeping all the document, they will be ensuring that you will be tied to that individual, right? So it is criticized also as the modern day slavery. Now in the wake of the rising issues of human rights, that is being banned in many such countries, including now in the Saudi Arabia, which has abolished it. Next is Swami Fund, right? So it is basically the special window for the affordable and the middle income housing fund, which is the government backed fund to from the tightening of the rules of the alternative investment fund. So recently there have been RBI ke kuch regulations regarding the tightening of the rules on the alternative investment funds. So the Swami fund, which is basically special window for the affordable and the mid income housing, and that's why it is provided as the exemption from these particular regulations. Now, what is the purpose of this? Because see, if that particular fund is in news, the purpose may be asked. Purpose is for the affordable and the mid-income housing. So this is to fund the stalled and the stressed residential project. Maybe ho sakta hai ki those who have created this particular entire pool of money, who have invested their money and pooled that money, now they do not possess this much amount to complete this project. Now in that case, obviously, what is going to get hampered? The affordable and the mid-income housing projects. So in that case, the government will provide certain support. So in that particular cases, to fund the stalled or the stressed residential project के लिए Swami Fund use or develop किया गया था, right? Who is the fund manager? It is the SBI Ventures Limited who is the fund manager. Now it is a category 2 alternative investment fund. Firstly, that what is the alternative investment fund? So it is a fund established or incorporated in India, which is privately pooled investment vehicle. Let's say there may be investor 1, 2, 3, 4. ठीक है, different let's say companies हो सकती हैं, individuals हो सकते हैं, maybe foreign entity also. They are pooling their money, giving their money to this particular fund so that the risk is getting spread and the money is generated for that. And these people obviously will get the returns. अब ये invest कर रहे हैं तो they will get the return whatever benefit is coming. Now what is category 2? In category 2 there is real estate, private equity and the distressed assets project. These are there. So there is category 1 also, which is generally for the socio-economic beneficial जो projects होते हैं, which are for the weaker sections of society. There is category 2 also, there is category 3 also. Like this, there are alternative investment fund. Now who is regulating this AIF? This is being regulated by SEBI. Clear? So this is regarding the Swami fund. Next is regarding intrusion detection system. So the context is that Northeast Frontier Railway, which has implemented or implementing a intrusion detection system across its network to prevent the elephant death on track. Now see, whenever let's say there is any specific linear developmental project, for example, let's say this is a forest region. Now in this forest region you have to pass a railway line. Now when this railway line is passing, first you are clearing certain trees, but still there will be, let's say this area will be forest, this area will be forest and this area will be forest. Now in that case, this will be high possibility that the elephant or the other animal might be migrating from place A to place B, and there might be an issue when the railway is functioning, when the train is operating, there may be death of these elephant or maybe any other wildlife because of the collision with these particular animals. So that's why there is the intrusion detection system that are being deployed specifically in the northeastern frontier railway, that is using the advanced optical fiber sensing technology, which will sense the vibration, that will detect based upon the vibration that there is certain intrusion on the tracks, and that will give the signal to the centralized place जो है, जो operate कर रहा होगा train movement को, and they will then detect and they will take the precautionary measure. So transmit signal to the control room in the real time basis. This will help better railway operation. This will also prevent the death of these particular species. So this is the intrusion detection system. Next is regarding Kunar River. So following the steps of India, because see again, the terrorism and the developmental projects can't go hand in hand, right? So when the attack was on the Pahalgam region in India, and that was being carried out from the terrorists backed by Pakistan, in that particular case, India suspended the Indus Water Treaty. Now what Afghanistan is trying to do, Afghanistan is also replicating the steps from India, and they are trying to build a dam on the Kunar River in order to prevent the supply of its water to the Pakistani region, right? So Afghanistan has announced plan to construct a dam on the Kunar River, obstructing its flow to Pakistan, right? Now this is a main tributary of Kabul River, which merges later with the Indus River. So this is a tributary of Kabul River. Now Kabul River later on merges with Indus River in Pakistan. Now where it is originating, we are talking about Kunar River. So it is originating from the Hindu Kush mountains of Chitral region of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in Pakistan. So it is originating in Pakistan, then it is flowing to Afghanistan, then ultimately from Afghanistan again with the Kabul River, it is merging with Indus River, right? Flows to Afghanistan and merges with the Kabul River there. And there are two main tributaries. There is Bashgal, which is there, and also there is Pech, right? So this is much enough regarding the Kunar River. ऐसे भी क्वेश्चन पूछ सकता है यूपीएससी, रिसेंटली कुनार रिवर वाज इन न्यूज, associated with which particular country. Next is regarding the Mahe watercrafts. So first of the 8 anti-submarine warfare shallow watercraft है ये Mahe watercraft, right? So this is the anti-submarine warfare shallow watercraft. So shallow watercraft means for the littoral water which is not that deep, right? Anti-submarine warfare, that means submarine that is deployed for surveillance and other things. Against that it can wage the warfare. Developed by Cochin Shipyard Limited, fun such prominent information. Now what is Mahe? It is a historic port town which is part of the Union Territory of Puducherry. Now it is an underwater surveillance system. It is having underwater surveillance system. There is low intensity maritime operations. So low intensity ki operation, it is not about full-fledged war, but yes, low intensity warfare it can take. Anti-submarine warfare, operations in the coastal water, it can do all these functions. Now it enhances obviously the Navy's anti-submarine warfare capabilities in the littoral zone. One such prominent thing is more than 80% of this particular water anti-submarine warfare जो shallow water craft बनाया है, इसका 80% से ज़्यादा is indigenously developed. So it is also promoting the Atmanirbhar Bharat vision, developed by Cochin Shipyard Limited, right? The next article is regarding the human immunodeficiency virus HIV, right? So generally you hear this particular term in the context of the acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, which is AIDS, right? But right now, what is the news? That the Maldives became the first country to halt the mother-to-child transmission of HIV, syphilis and hepatitis B. When specifically certain diseases are in news, generally you have to have an idea about what are the vector and how they are getting spreaded. One such commonality is there, that all of them are the sexually transmitted diseases. Maybe through the physical contact, maybe through the fluids or the liquids. In all these manner, these particular diseases can spread. So HIV is there. What is the carrier? It is the virus which weakens the immunity or the immune system by attacking the white blood cell of the individual and leads to the AIDS, right? So it is HIV. Then syphilis, it is a bacterial disease which is caused by the bacterium Treponema Palladium, right? So it is a bacterial disease, again a sexually transmitted disease. Hepatitis B, viral infection that attacks the liver and can cause both acute and the chronic diseases. Again, it is also a sexually transmitted disease, right? So HIV, syphilis and hepatitis B, the viral, bacterial and viral disease, right? So generally you will see that UPSC asks the question like this only. Clear hai? So with this we have completed the news today articles for today. Okay? So I hope that whatever we have discussed, in what detail we have discussed, I have tried to cover it comprehensively. I have tried to give you certain questions also, certain other linkages also. Now try to solve the question which are on your screen also, and also try to visit this particular page and write in the comment section regarding the questions I have already asked you. So I am hoping that things which we have discussed is clear to you. Thank you very much. We'll meet again in certain other session. Okay? Thank you everyone. Have a great day.